Torturoon came about because we went to France, we got our producer, and we were doing an album. So we were in France, and we knew that there was a band from the 80s called Revenant already. So we knew we had to change the band name. People were starting to a little bit, the older metal people were starting to be like, oh, you're copying the band name, blah, blah, blah. So we knew we had to change the name. And so when we were sitting in France, we were in the south of France recording. We were like, okay, let's come up with some names.
Why did we come to France to record? Because we can stand out in the sun and eat watermelon all day.
After the new one.
Watermelon by the sea. Oh, we'll call the CD that. Watermelon by the sea. Fucking look at that.
We might be inspired for a name while we're here.
And we came up with a few different names. And I think we were coming up with the band name and the album name at the same time, and we were pulling it from lyrics in the album itself. So in the end we decided, like, okay, we had a list of names, and in the end Reclaim the Throne and Thoughts of Ruin came out as favorites. And in the end we decided that Thoughts of Ruin was a better band name and Reclaim the Throne was a better album name. So that's what we did.
We put the first song, God Complex, which had Cal singing on it, up on our MySpace, and the reaction was class. People were messaging, it was like, okay, this is pretty much a big deal. And personally, it was cool having Cal sing on one of our songs, because him having that connection to the bands I listened to over in France, it's cool for me to have that there. It's like, here we go, that's my connection. And it was cool to hear that kind of vocal over our music. I really enjoyed that, and it was cool to listen to. And yeah, the reaction was strong for that one. And then we put up The Despise. People liked that one too. And it was a great song, and it was just a really cool moment, to be honest. And then people started showing up at gigs that had heard us from the internet, which was even stranger. I was like, what the hell?
Lots of infighting. So we were touring a lot after the album came out, and so a lot. We did so many shows with pretty much every weekend, and so Ireland's small, we don't really do tours, but we were, in 1 month we were doing anywhere between 5 to 10 shows a month, bearing in mind that we're all working full time.
At the time, we did the album in 2007, and then we released it in 2008, and at that time we were just together all the time, and we're just gigging the whole time, we were working together the whole time, and it's young, and it was a very explosive band, to be honest.
So we were always out doing stuff, and we were doing full on tours as well, where we would have an international band come in and we would do all of the dates, and we were starting to get support slot with some international bands.
You'd be in each other's faces the whole time, and eventually it would come to a head, and instead of just doing the grown-up thing of like, hey, we should have a chat, I was like, no, I'm leaving the band.
But we were with each other a lot, and again, that chaotic energy that was good to create heavy metal music was also kind of detrimental when it comes to personal relationships and stuff like that. So we tended to get along really well, but then we would fight a lot and whatever. And then there was fallings out within the band on a personal level, more on the Tipperary end of things, because obviously they all live in Clonmel and I live in Cork. So I think the first one to leave was Dave.
So I left, and didn't think too much about it, went off, left, made another band. And in hindsight, I kind of wish I didn't, even though I did cool stuff since, but it just never sat right with me that I left, when it could have been sorted out. I know it's just 20, almost 20 years later, still thinking about it. It does suck, leaving all that at the table when it had potential to do something big.
And there was some personal fallout between him and Colin. And I'm not going to go into the reasons because Dave can talk about that if he wants. It's his story.
You know, I'd be watching the band from the sidelines, cheering them on, going, "Come on, do something cool with what we did," you know. And you know, I was looking forward to hearing what they did next. You know, I wanted them to use what we did, and you know.
And then later, I think the next one who left was Niall. I think. So we got to the point where we were changing members and stuff like that, and
Before I knew Niall had left, and I was like, okay, all right. I didn't see that one coming. And then Niall actually played with I Burn a couple of times, which is funny. It was cool. I jammed with him a few times over the years since. And then before I knew, Brendan was in Cambodia. So yeah, it was just sucked to see it go down like that.
I remember we did a show in Limerick. This was kind of what kicked it for me. I didn't leave the band, but it was what pissed me off. Was we did a show in Wexford, Limerick, and it was Siege of Limerick, which is an ongoing festival, and we were headlining the second stage, and so that was a pretty big deal for us, and it was you know, kind of an endorsement from the scene that we had, you know, established ourselves, and we were fucking terrible, and like to this day I still get pissed about that show because we were all over the place. We were not tight anymore. I think that might have been Niall's last show. I can't remember. No, that wasn't Niall's show. That was somebody else. I don't know. But we were terrible. We were messy, and it's the first time in my life before that show and since that I ever cut a show on the amount of songs that we had. I would always fight to get us more songs. I always wanted more time. To me, every artist in the world should be always trying to get more time. That was the first time in my career, the only time in my career where I ever said, I'm cutting 2 songs or 1 song or something like that. I was just like, I don't want to be on the stage anymore. This is embarrassing. So I remember finishing the show and I didn't even go backstage. I just walked off the front of the stage, out of the venue, went to the hotel, and I didn't speak to anybody. I went back to Cork the next day, and I was so fucking furious. And that's when I knew we'd kind of lost our direction. We'd lost where we were, because we were always about the live show. Even if we weren't getting it right on writing, even if we were having, you know, issues internally, we always got it right live, and that one, you know, it pissed me off a lot.
But like the last time myself, Brandon and Niall, actually all of us were all in the same room. I think it was a show in Thurles, Halloween night 2009, and it was I Burn's Thoughts of Ruin Censura. We love Censura, fucking great band. Shout out Tony. You know, we love that band. And at the end of the night, we decided to have a band jam and play Roots by the Roots. Well, Thoughts of Ruin's drummer was gone. Clint from My Burn was gone, but Niall was there for some reason, so we're like, come in here, jam with us, and we played that, and it was cool. It was Niall on drums, me on guitar, Shocks on guitar, Richie McCormick on bass, and Matt from My Burn and Brendan singing. That would have been the last time we all played, you know, 2009, and then Brendan was gone shortly after that.
So finally it was just me and Colin left, and so we weren't doing any live shows anymore. We had some members who would come in and play, but we were the core writing, and we still wanted to go and do that elusive second album, and we were booked in to go back to France to record with Cal again, and Colin kind of went off the boil around that time. I'm not going into any of his personal information, but he went off the boil, and we had no songs ready to go to France. So meaning like I had no music to write any lyrics to, and he'd just gone completely non-responsive. I couldn't get any responses from him. We were supposed to fly to France a couple of weeks later or something like that, and in the end I just went, Colin, you're leaving me high and dry here. You know, Cal is calling me and calling me and calling me, and I have nothing to tell him because I don't know what's going on. You need to tell me what's going on, and I couldn't get a response, and eventually I said, Colin, I have to step out of the band now because this is not the way we do things. And then Cal got pissed with me because I quit the band when things were bad, but the reality was I didn't know what else to do, because and myself and Cal's relationship has never recovered since then, because we got into it pretty bad afterwards. But it was just like I was left high and dry. and didn't know what to do, because obviously as a vocalist I can only write when there's music. So the band just kind of crumbled and crumbled and crumbled and crumbled until there was nothing left, and then it was done.